Nothing quite catches a fan's passion like the best fighting the best. And when the bout involves heavyweights, the frenzy reaches its peak. In 1999, Lennox Lewis was a man in search of an identity. Of Jamaican descent, Lewis was born in England. Later, during his childhood, he moved to Canada, where he began boxing. He represented the nation in the 1984 Olympics. Failing to medal, he tried again in 1988, capping off a stellar amateur career by winning gold. Lewis turned pro thereafter, but the Canadian boxing scene was ill-equipped for big-time boxing. And so, Lewis returned to England, expecting a hero's welcome. But the Brits failed to fully embrace him. To them, he was a chameleon in their midst, and contender Frank Bruno remained their hero. Another problem plaguing Lewis since the amateur days was his style. Despite standing at 6 feet and 5 inches tall, Lewis refused to press his advantages. Still, the knockouts came early in his career, and the victims included Mike Weaver, Tyrell Biggs, and Donovan Racer Ruddock. The American Riddick Bowe was considered the heavyweight champion, but boxing politics interfered when he refused to fight Lewis. Thus, the Brit was awarded the WBC belt. In 1993, Lewis defended it against British hero Frank Bruno. He was a tough start for Lewis, but he prevailed by stopping Bruno in the 7th round. Still, Lewis remained a confusing figure, a reluctant giant with punching power, and a dull personality who often displayed genuine disdain for his opponents. For many, Lewis was exposed when he met veteran Oliver McCall in 1994. With a big right hand, the American soiled Lewis's perfect record. So now, not only was Lewis mentally unfit for the big time, but his chin was ill-equipped as well. Undeterred, he hired the man who trained McCall to beat him, the legendary Emmanuel Stewart. Lewis scored victories over contenders Tommy Morrison and Ray Mercer, the latter being a vicious war. The bout showed Lewis's grit, but now the critics questioned his talent. When he boxed, he was a scared giant, and when he slugged, he was a simple-minded lummox. For Lewis, there was no pleasing the public. This lack of public support allowed a comebacking Mike Tyson to avoid defending his title against the Brit. And so, a 31-year-old Lewis fought for a vacant belt against his old nemesis, Oliver McCall. Lewis scored his revenge in a bizarre bout, in which the unhinged American refused to fight.
Well, I've seen some strange things in boxing. That is surely one of the strangest.
Lewis followed it up with a slow dance against Henry Akinwande, which the Brit won by disqualification. In the fall of 1997, he blasted out contender Andrew Galata. Lewis was in his physical prime, but he was not considered the best heavyweight in the world. In 1984, the American Evander Holyfield grabbed the bronze medal at the Summer Olympics. From there, he unified the unheralded cruiserweight division. But his bout with the legendarily tough Dwight Muhammad Qawi previewed Holyfield's future: deft skills, controlled aggression, and entertaining fights. After becoming the cruiserweight king, Holyfield moved up to the heavyweight division. Standing at 6 feet and 2.5 inches in height, Holyfield was undersized by modern standards. Still, he defeated an assortment of titleists and contenders, such as James Tillis, Pinklon Thomas, Michael Dokes, and Alex Stewart. In those fights, Holyfield displayed an indomitable will, superb conditioning, and a cruiserweight's pace. But he also showed vulnerability, often veering on the feet before pouncing on his foes. In 1990, Buster Douglas shocked the world when he took the championship from the seemingly invincible Mike Tyson. Holyfield took on an undisciplined Douglas that very year and halted him in 3 rounds. Contrary to Lewis's predicament in England, Holyfield enjoyed his countrymen's adulation. And unlike Lewis, Holyfield knew how he wanted to box, by risking it all. Bouts against aging stars such as George Foreman and Larry Holmes proved sizzling affairs, as did a slugfest against French contender Bert Cooper, a bout that saw Holyfield badly hurt before rallying back to score a win. But how long could Holyfield last as a professional? The answer appeared to come in 1992, when Holyfield met the undefeated silver medalist, Riddick Bowe. Holyfield slugged it out against the bigger man in what became one of the best heavyweight fights of all time. But Bowe was too big and too good. Holyfield lost his titles. Displaying the same determination outside the ring that he showed inside, Holyfield planned a comeback. He hired Emmanuel Stewart for a 1993 Bowe rematch. It was another war. But Holyfield's superior conditioning saw him through as he regained the championship via majority decision. And some believed Holyfield could have stopped Bowe had it not been for the untimely arrival of the Fan Man, which gave an ailing Bowe a chance to recover. But the comeback was cut short in 1994 when Holyfield lost his championship to former light heavyweight champion Michael Moore. Holyfield was later diagnosed with a heart condition and his career appeared over. But citing divine intervention, Holyfield returned in 1995. He was back to his old self, trading leather with Ray Mercer. He even dropped his iron-chained opponent en route to a decision win. At that time, a 45-year-old George Foreman had wrestled the title away from Michael Moore. The division was ripe for the picking. In 1995, Holyfield took on Riddick Bowe for a third meeting. It was another war, with both men hurt. Ultimately, the bigger Bowe prevailed and inflicted the first stoppage defeat of Holyfield's career. Holyfield returned in 1996 against former light heavyweight and cruiserweight champion Bobby Chiz and looked flat against his undersized opponent. At 34 years of age, Holyfield was considered to finish as a contender. At the time, Mike Tyson held the belt and was looking for a big money fight. The Holyfield fight would provide a payday against a big but beatable opponent and continue placing Tyson as a viable contender for the true crown. Holyfield was a resounding underdog against Tyson, to the point where many feared for his life. Instead, Holyfield turned back the clock, outfighting the bullish Tyson en route to an 11-round stoppage. Once again, Holyfield had resuscitated his career. A rematch took place later that year, and Holyfield's headbutts drove Tyson insane, leading the challenger to bite part of Holyfield's ear off. Holyfield capped off the year by gaining revenge over Michael Moore in an entertaining fight. With the victory, Holyfield had taken Moore's belt and was one strap away from being the linear two-time heavyweight champion. Despite holding a belt and being on a 6-fight winning streak, Lewis had yet to gain the adulation bestowed to Holyfield, but he remained close to gaining the lineal championship. Entering 1998, Lewis took on the heavy-punching Shannon Briggs. Lewis suffered a scare early on and was forced to regroup before halting Briggs in the 5th round. Lewis would later claim he'd been unprepared for the bout. Had the Brit learned from his upset loss to McCall? Then, he ended the year by defending his title against the unknown Zeljko Mavrovic. Lewis dominated the bout, but was unable to hurt his inexperienced foe. Holyfield, meanwhile, defended his titles against Von Bean. The champion delivered a flat performance and failed to stop his opponent. Perhaps fearful of incurring upset defeats, both Lewis and Holyfield finally agreed to fight. The bout would take place on March 1999. For the first time in years, boxing would finally have an undisputed heavyweight champion. Lewis trained diligently, but he still suffered from reluctance, something Emmanuel Stewart attempted to curtail.
But you need to throw the left hook more. I keep telling you, you're concentrating on a 1-2, and your man is fighting you from here. Let it go. You hesitate too much. You gotta let shots go. You hold it up too much.
Holyfield, meanwhile, despite being older at 36 years of age, was the more familiar commodity. As such, he entered the bout as a slight favorite. On fight night, however, the odds evened up. Despite giving away 31 pounds in weight, Holyfield appeared supremely confident. He was also adamant about prophesizing a 3rd-round stoppage, stating, "I'm still holding to the truth. The truth is, I'm gonna knock him out in the 3rd round." The bout would take place at the legendary Madison Square Garden, the location of Frazier Ali 1, considered one of the best heavyweight fights ever. After 11 years of waiting, Lewis started off quickly. With his protector reaching his armpits, Lewis displayed his laser-like jab and kept Holyfield at bay. But he was also clinching, something Holyfield failed to appreciate. Lewis unleashed his power in the second, and then proceeded to dominate Holyfield. In the third, Lewis continued firing his long-range offense, But Holyfield, powered by his pre-fight visions, upped the pace. Finally, the fans received what they wanted. But for Holyfield, the prophecy faltered. In the fourth, Lewis continued staying out of range, and Holyfield looked deflated. In the fifth, Lewis outclassed Holyfield, and one wondered whether the American would hear the final bell. Surprised by his own success, Lewis grew overconfident in the sixth, and Holyfield pounced. Within minutes, however, Lewis reasserted control. Round after round, Lewis maintained a perfect range, snapping Holyfield's head around. By this time, Holyfield was a seasoned veteran, and he succeeded in deflecting much of Lewis's heavy artillery. But whereas Riddick Bowe had constantly slugged it out with Holyfield, Lewis used his size and reach to pile up points, refusing an all-out war. Needing a miracle, Holyfield rallied his energy in the 10th, and the battle intensified. Lewis reasserted control in the 11th, but Holyfield kept coming. With victory in his grasp, Lewis boxed beautifully. The decision was expected merely as a formality. But then...
Judge at ringside, Larry O'Connell scores the bout 115 to 115, even a draw. Both champions retain their belts.
It was bad enough for Judge Larry O'Connell to score the bout a draw when Lewis had clearly won. But Judge Eugenia Williams' incompetence overshadowed his when she scored the bout 115-113 for Holyfield. Lewis was astounded.
You gotta go check those scores, man. That's fucked up. What shot they hit me with? What? Nothing. Bullshit.
Don't worry about a riot.
I'm a fucking champion in here.
Holyfield, meanwhile, remained coy.
Were you surprised to get the draw?
It's real simple. The people around the ring is not the judge. You know, things happen to me sometimes like that. That's just the way it flows. You know, it's always the next time.
Emmanuel Stewart was despondent, saying he, Lewis, controlled the fight. It wasn't even close. This is what's killing boxing. Don Turner, Holyfield's trainer, disagreed, saying, I thought we won the last 4 rounds to win the fight. But it was close. It was definitely close. Holyfield's promoter, the infamous Don King, merely bellowed, let's do it again. On the grandest stage, boxing had shown its ugly side.
About money. It's all about money. All about money.
Outraged boxing fans were convinced the fix was in Saturday night as Lennox Lewis completely overwhelmed Evander Holyfield but came away with only a draw.
This is an embarrassment to boxing in general.
Lewis was master of the jab, while Holyfield spent the evening delivering powerful blows to Lewis's right hand with his face.
And Don King was at the center of it all.
Don King has got too much to do in boxing, and the sooner they get rid of Don King, the better.
Promoter Don King explained the controversial decision, declaring, quote, saying what it should be does not say what it was and what it was supposed to be.
But King, the ultimate hustler, refused to shy from the cameras.
Do you think he won the fight?
I would not second guess the good.
No, it's an opinion. Do you think he won it?
My opinion is meaning. All I can do is accept what the judges have said.
Who won the fight on Saturday night?
And you have guys on both sides of the aisle arguing that their respective person won. Some for Lennox Lewis, they say Lennox won. Some of them think that Holyfield won. And so you have it where it's a draw. You have several that says a draw. Dave Anderson of the New York Times says it was a draw. The chairman of the board of USSB, Stanley Hubbard, he had said it was a draw. Colin Hart, one of the most respected writers in London, said it was a draw.
Well, you have a very unpopular decision, but not a corrupt decision. And this is the distinction between what is happening.
Did Don King think it was a draw?
Don King accepts the decision of the judges.
I know that, but just tell me, did Don King...
Well, you know,
you've seen a lot of fights. You've promoted a lot of fights. You've promoted fights with all these heavyweight champions. You know something about the sport of boxing. Who won the fight?
Charles, let me tell you, at a fight that has not too many people, I would be able to give you an intelligent answer because I wouldn't have nothing else to do but to appear at the fight.
Right.
But with a fight with the magnetism of that fight Saturday night, with the electricity, with 21,000 people, with Jack Nicholson and Michael Douglas, I didn't have time, and I was sitting
You were
there.
taking care of them and not
Yes.
watching the fight?
What chance is the rematch happening in Britain?
There's always an opportunity for it to happen in the great UK because the UK is a beautiful place. It's got beautiful people, and I love the people of the UK.
I might have missed it, Don. I didn't get the answer. What chance of the rematch?
And like a true hustler, he even charmed his detractors.
You certainly come in for a lot of personal criticism. Why do you think that is?
I find myself being a controversial person because they can't figure out how I continue to succeed, and I continue to go as Churchill would do. He said, we will fight them on the beaches, we will fight them in the trenches, we will fight them in the air battles, but we shall never, never surrender. Victory is ours.
The inexperienced IBF judge, Eugenia Williams, was the focus of a New York State hearing. Forced to justify her decision, Williams said, "I scored what I saw when I saw it. What I saw that night is not what the camera saw. They were at a different angle." Williams also blamed photographers and Lewis for obstructing her vision, thus preventing her from properly ascertaining the action. When asked whether she'd been bribed, Williams vehemently denied it. More tellingly, she admitted she would have scored round 5 for Lewis, which would have had him announced as the winner. Still, one wondered how she could continue to maintain that the bout had been close. In the end, a rematch remained the only logical route. This time in Las Vegas, Holyfield started quickly. Lewis tried a big right hand, but Holyfield was tenacious. In the second, Lewis fired his jab. By the third, the bout was looking like a repeat of the first bout, but Holyfield appeared fresher. Lewis kept Holyfield at bay, and the clinching prevented the American from scoring inside. In the fifth, Holyfield reached for his classic weapon, the headbutt. Lewis ate another headbutt in the sixth, and though Lewis had won the round, it also slowed down, much to Stewart's consternation.
But you just cut off completely. It's the same way you lost some other one and get your ass in trouble on the damn scorecard because you're not fighting. You're waiting too damn much. All right. Let the shots go.
Lewis heeded the advice, but the approach backfired as Holyfield stunned him. Holyfield went for the kill and threw in a headbutt for good measure. Lewis tried stealing the round, but ate another bomb. Lewis re-established distance in the eighth. Knowing he could hurt Lewis, Holyfield rallied in the ninth, and the two men traded. In the 10th, Holyfield was surprisingly competitive by using his jab. A tired Lewis picked the pace up in the 11th. With all the titles on the line, both men finished strongly. And Holyfield just couldn't abandon the headbutt. Lewis must have been nervous. What would he receive in what had turned to be a surprisingly tougher rematch?
Lennox Lewis!
Lewis was now the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. The stain from the first fight washed away. But as soon as Lewis had collected all the belts, the WBA stripped him of the title. But despite what any strap said, Lewis remained the division's true king. Holyfield would then face John Ruiz, another Don King fighter, for the belt. As for Lewis, he would go on to face America's next hope. But these are tales for another time.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more boxing content.